Very good. Well, then the next item on the agenda is the Raleigh Youth Council Liaison Representatives presentation. Hey,
Hi,
Carmen.
everyone. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. I'll give them a second to turn their cameras on. But tonight I have Zachary Milton. This is his first time attending a meeting, so I'm just going to give him a brief introduction. He's a junior at Athens High School. He's a president of Athens DECA Club, co-founder and vice president of the Athens Drive BSU, and the secretary of the Black Association's Leaders of Tomorrow program. He's currently serving as our publicity chair. In addition to Zachary tonight, we have Sammy, who you all have met before. He is our chair, and I'll let them take it.
Hi, hope everyone's doing all right tonight. I'm here to catch you up on what the Raleigh Youth Council has been doing lately. We have had multiple events between March and April. We had an Easter egg hunt, a park cleanup, and this Friday, we're looking forward to our first sort of in-person meet and greet. We are going to be outside, social distance, mask required, of course. We're really looking forward to that, as well as 2 events this weekend, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. We also have been invited to be a part of the Dorothea Dix Plaza and Play project, just giving sort of a teen input on anything we could help with. I think that's all, unless I'm forgetting anything.
Hi, and also what we've been doing, so our last meeting, we had Councilman Corey Branch come speak with us, and he talked to us about elections, public speaking, and just valuable information for our council members, because our next meeting is actually our elections, and that's why I wanted to come today, because that's when we're going to be electing our new board. And I'm a senior, and this will probably be like the last time seeing everyone here for this partnership. I'm going to UNC Chapel Hill next year, and it's just been great being a part of RYC and having like these new opportunities. So I know that our new board, when they get elected next meeting, they'll love to continue this partnership and do a lot of great things in the future with everyone. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much. And congratulations on going to UNC in the fall. Sounds exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you both for your report and the update. Zachary, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. Great. Next on the agenda, we have an update from Grayson on the Dix Park Plaza and Play.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. It's been a while since I've seen the park board. I'm Grayson Mon. I'm a planner dedicated to Dix Park. I want to introduce Hillary Archer. She is our project manager on the design team, which is Michael Van Valkenburg Associates, or MVVA. We have been making some exciting progress with Plaza and Play. We just entered the design development phase. So with that, I will turn it over to her. Thank you, Hillary.
Hi, thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah, okay. First, a humongous thank you for your time tonight. I've actually really been looking forward to this one and only opportunity to meet with you all. As Grayson said, I'm Hillary Archer. I work at MVVA. I'm an associate there, also a landscape architect. We are managing the design team for the Plaza Play project. And what that really means is I spend the majority of my waking life on this project, and that's with pleasure. I want to just start by saying that the goal, I think I have 15 minutes, so the goal with my time with y'all is twofold. One is to share a design update, and also to really just hear from you. So the first thing I want to start by saying is that design, the word design, the concept of design is thrown around loosely And I think it's much, much more than just a bunch of pretty pictures. It's ultimately a thing that will get built. And that can be an incredibly powerful, and incredibly exciting and humbling experience. But more than anything, to me, it's an honor and it's a commitment to creating an incredible, unique space for all people to come together, make memories, meet people, and hopefully come back time and time again. So that being said, I have really been looking forward to this time to meet with you, because in order to make a project like this successful, we really need to represent the city and what the city wants and what they see for themselves and what they need. And so I'm really eager to have the discussion with you all after this short presentation. And so for now, we can jump in. So just a picture of where we are right now in time. As Grayson mentioned, we're in design development phase. So the core team, our large team of about 20 sub-consultants and MBVA have been working really diligently and quickly, and have just completed our schematic design phase. So what I'm going to be sharing with you today is a lot of the materials from that work. And as we move into design development, we'll begin to bring a lot more detail and refinement to all of the pieces of the project, which I'll go through with you today. But we are looking to wrap up our construction documents by the summer of 2022. So just to get everyone oriented, just in case, we're in downtown Raleigh, we're right on the southern side of Dix Park along Lake Wheeler Road and the Fuller Heights community. And today, the site, as some of you might know, is a beloved dog park. It used to be, as you can see, some remnants of the athletic fields, a softball field, and recreation areas for the patients of the Dix Park Hospital. I read that a lot of the patients would compete against the public in softball tournaments. But today it's a lot of grass and a lot of really incredible existing old trees, a lot of oaks and pecans. It's relatively flat, which makes it a very ideal entry point and gateway for Dix Park as we set out in the master plan. And there's also what you can't see, a lot of underground utilities and quite a few limitations that we're negotiating now as we're getting into our design. There's also a few buildings on site that I'll just point out. There's the chiller plant, which provides the cool air for the whole campus, and that's going to remain in operation for some time. There's two houses as well. There's what's the Benner House and the Buffalo House, now called the House of Many Porches, because it actually has some beautiful intact porches that wrap around almost all sides of it. And that is the house that we are going to be historically rehabilitating with our amazing historic preservation architects, Joe Opperman. There's also a few surface parking lots and some storage for the Dix Park Parks and Recreation team. But this is our site. It's about 12 to 18 acres. And we've come through an amazing and robust public engagement process, thanks to Grayson and her team and the priorities set out at the beginning of the project. We've had 2 public meetings that were so well attended, given that we had to meet in COVID times remotely. I think we had about 500 people, right, Grayson, on our second public meeting. A lot of great discussions, a lot of engaging Q&As and polls. And as you can see, a really great, healthy representation across Raleigh. This is a picture of the attendees from our second public meeting. We've also had the pleasure of meeting with the community committee, which is a group of people from Raleigh of all walks of life and expertise who are advising the project from a community standpoint, and also many times with the leadership committee, which includes people like the mayor and people from the Conservancy who are funding the project. So we've got to hear a lot of voices as we've been moving through this process, and we will continue to do so. So these three principles, they may just be words, but they really permeate everything we do and everything we think about when it comes to advancing the design and creating a place here. So I just want to touch on these quickly, and I'll elaborate more on how they played out in the design. But the principles of the master plan apply to this first project, the Plaza Play, to build from what is here, to open up and connect, and to really, truly offer something for everybody. And so here we are. This is the 100% schematic design plan. And don't worry, you don't have to digest it all right now. I know it might be even a little too small, but I'm going to take us through these different elements. But I will say that there are these four main themes or groupings that the project has begun to define for itself. And all of these zones of the park are rooted in play in some form or fashion. And I'll go through those in just a moment. But starting with the first master plan concept of building from what is there, I wanted to just share our sort of big aha moment, our big idea, which is looking just over to Harvey Hill and the Grove from our site, which is just a stone's throw away, and understanding that this is an incredibly culturally rich and ecologically significant piece of Dix Park that is just next door to us. And something that our partner on the project, Matt Urbanski, always says about some of our best parks is that they have a borrowed landscape. And in this case, we realize that we have one here with the Grove and the historic significance of that. And so what we did just almost out of the gate was look for a way to bring that Grove landscape through topography and planting into the Plaza Play, and then essentially extending the Plaza Play site acres and acres beyond its site extents. So really marrying the two places and expanding the experience all together in that one big move. So then talking about how do we open up and connect? So this has to be a destination, really, but also a gateway for the future Dix Park as we continue to build it out and realize the vision in the master plan for the full 300 acres. So something really important to our team was figuring out ways to accommodate an entry and arrival for all modes, but also to delineate them so that they're not in conflict with one another, and to enhance the experience of each. So by car, of course, and we learned in the public meetings that people arriving by bus is extremely important, and also by bike and on foot, of course. And whether that's coming from the south on Lake Wheeler Road, or if people are wandering around Dix Park already and coming in through the north. So for vehicular arrival, there are two main entry points off of Lake Wheeler Road. That would be Umstead Drive and Good Street. And those sort of coalesce into the center of Plaza Play, being the main thoroughfares into the park. On the left is if you were to be driving in from Good Drive, and this takes you into the main parking area. And then from the right on the screen, there's a turnaround if you were to be coming in from Umstead Drive. For bike arrival, almost a similar scenario, because Lake Wheeler Road will be eventually widening, which is a separate project from this, and providing a really great multimodal path for bikes and pedestrians. This project is really about getting people from A to B as quickly as possible if they're getting here by bike, and also being able to receive people coming from the farmers market to the west or from Dix Park. And so we've been developing a number of access points and a citrus cycle dock, as well as different zones for bike parking. And we'll even have a bike station where you can fill up your tire and so forth. And then something we've been working with the core team on is really maximizing pedestrian access points, not just, one or two along Lake Wheeler Road per se, but really trying to think about people arriving by foot and all the different types of experiences that those could entail. So we're going to continue working on this, but right now there's a lot of entry points from all sides. And one of the biggest things I want to mention is that, as you can see in the blue, almost all the paths are ADA accessible. And that includes all of the areas in the playgrounds that I'll go over in a moment, and the picnic grove, the fountain plaza, and all of the meandering paths that go in between those spaces. So I'm going to quickly now go through the different zones so that we can paint this picture for you all and have a good discussion. So the first is the entry landscapes. And as I mentioned, Lake Wheeler Road is going to widen into the park at some time in the future. And so we wanted to come up with a landscape strategy that could be mushable, if you will. Grasses, low investment, but still beautiful and ecologically rich. A lot of meadows and wet meadows, and just a landscape that would work very well and be welcoming to people, but also work really well with the Fuller Heights community and not close it off. So we also heard a lot about bringing people together around plants and having areas devoted to wildflowers. And so we looked into the Piedmont prairie ecology and ways to use plants to attract pollinators and birds, but also be experientially diverse and beautiful to move through. And so this gives you an idea of the landscape that we're envisioning all along Lake Wheeler Road and into the parking area. And so this, specifically looking at the parking area, green stormwater infrastructure, GSI, is a standard that we are really taking seriously for this project. And what that means is treating all of the water that comes in a storm event on site and with plants. So not putting it in pipes and getting it away as fast as possible, but letting it be expressed in the landscape and celebrated. So in the parking lot, it's not just areas to park your car, but it's a working landscape in stormwater events, and also quite beautiful and ecologically diverse with a lot of forbs and grasses. And as I said, species that are in the Piedmont prairie. So sort of in the heart of the park is this band of civic landscapes, we call it. So areas where people can gather and maybe find an activity that they wouldn't expect, or come for a picnic. So really just a wide variety of experiences, again, looking towards that, meeting that expectation and goal set in the master plan of creating something for everybody. And so again, integrating what we heard in the public meetings is, really put a heart in this park and maybe provide spaces for intimate performances, or places to go to the bathroom, places to enjoy that view down the Grove to downtown Raleigh. And also not be prescriptive, but allow people to be imaginative and wander and also play. And so I'm just going to go through this as if we just arrived by car and we want to go down to what is called the Swing Terrace. So we're approaching what is the Grand Stair landscape, which is a major focal point and also experience down into the main Civic Plaza space. And to the left, you can see is a waterfall wall, and it's a playful feature. It's also one just to enjoy observing. And because of where it's located and orientation with the sun, it will always be lit and sort of glistening in the sun. And then straight ahead, you can see down that grove and the view lawn and maybe get a little peek of downtown Raleigh. So moving down the stair, this is a way to get from A to B, but also a place to linger and people watch and gather. And you can also imagine, because of its capacity, holding seating for all types of events, whether it's pop-up theater or readings or who knows, weddings. And then getting a little bit closer down into the waterfall wall and the feature wall. And this is a rendering, a quick rendering, but the material of this is really important. We're really investigating local, by local I mean regional, North Carolina types of stone that we could bring and create a unique feature here in this park. So really trying to address the concerns and the visions of the community to make this park for Raleigh and look to a lot of the regional landscapes as inspiration. And then moving through the Grove View lawn, which is that extension into the Grove for picnicking, gathering, and then eventually ending up at what we're calling the swing terrace, which is a little bit of an elevated flat area where we'll have some swings that could be lit up at night and just be a really fun place for people of all ages. So now getting into the play landscapes, we really have about, I would say, 3 distinct zones that together comprise this destination playground. When we say Plaza Play, we really got to go big on play. So we have what we're calling the North Carolina Playground that has a lot of custom structures. We'll have a nature play area that has more of a natural play, a lot of more planting in it. And then the big water play zone where sand and water mix. And there's a lot of different types of water play components for all ages. We heard from the community to think about adding streams and play fountains. Water was just a huge theme that came up over and over again, even making those water features available year round. Play for different ages, all abilities, and not separating those ages, but bringing them together so they can intermingle and play together, which isn't typically done in playgrounds. And as I mentioned, nodding to Raleigh's unique geology and North Carolina's unique geology, and incorporating nature throughout. So again, another kind of scenario, let's say we're walking or just got off a bus and are approaching the Fountain Plaza. So the heart of that civic heart that I mentioned. You can see a little bit in the distance, the glistening waterfall wall, and then maybe even a glimmer into the playground beyond. And to the left, you would have the grand stair. We imagine this to be a lot of shade, a lot of trees providing that shade, and also potentially movable tables and chairs for folks to bring food and just create their own little zone. So as you move, let's say we're going to the playground, as you move past the waterfall, you may even want to go behind it. It's one of the elements that we're exploring through the design, just creating a really unique moment where you can either look on and enjoy the fun or go ahead and get wet. And then approaching the playground, which will have these really unique custom play features, potentially these towers using a lot of timber, which is a local woodworking theme in Raleigh that we've been learning about, slides, climbing structures, and then of course, incorporating nature throughout for shade, but also for ecological richness and so forth. And then, of course, the sand bowl. Magical things happen when sand and water mix. Oh, big sand. Somebody have a question?
Cancel.
Should I keep going?
I think so. I think someone just doesn't realize they're not muted.
Oh, that happens to me all the time. This is a really fun place. We're imagining not just for kids, but for parents. we have a similar sand bowl in Brooklyn Bridge Park, and it's just constantly just full of people of all different ages making sandcastles, playing in the water features, and then little houses for climbing around, climbing under. So we're developing this design in further detail now, but we're very excited about these play features. And then, of course, thinking about practical things like seating for caretakers, for parents, for families, which also provide great spaces to have a quick lunch. So a couple practical things. We have in the center of the park a comfort station. And essentially what that means is a bathroom. It's an outdoor bathroom. And our architects, Hopgood Architects, are fabulous. Early on, they came up with this concept of this classical oculus. So if you were looking up, surrounded by cherubs up at the sky, but still contained. So what they've ended up developing is a building of bathrooms, as you can see on the right. This is a plan view of it, that is actually below ground. So it's subterranean. And it creates this very otherworldly, almost Space Odyssey-like, but classical folly in the landscape. So we're really excited. We're still developing this concept, trying to think of ways to maximize shade and also how people interact with it when they're in the space, but also above the space, since it is, there will be a roof landscape component to it. As I said, it is below ground. And then finally, there's this rich and robust banding of what we're calling garden landscapes. And these are really meant to create sort of like a containment and separation from all of the roads, so that when you're in the park, you feel a little bit removed from the city life and feel like you're in a new space. But they're also meant to be really explored. And we've been having a lot of fun developing the planting plans for these, which have been informed by a lot of local people who have a lot of knowledge about different Piedmont prairie species, but also tree species and shrub species, even edible plants. So we heard from the community to think about incorporating a lot of picnic areas and places like that. So marrying gardens with places where people can come around food. Places that are not about playgrounds. This doesn't all have to be about play, but it can invite wonder in a different sense. Places to incorporate concessions, places to sit, of course, and then to integrate site history into the site. And there is a lot of rich ecological and cultural landscape history that we can honor, as well as the social and cultural. So in terms of gardens, we're looking at a variety like these. So on the House of Many Porches, which is a much more residential scale, we're exploring the idea of kitchen gardens. And by that, I mean, it could be herbs or rotational food crop type plants or perennials that would be maintained by community groups or volunteer groups, along with park staff and horticulturalists. Really robust, very shaded walkways, as you can see in the bottom with the azaleas, to more meadow landscapes, and then some more plaza type bistro seating in a more traditional planting or grid of trees. So really looking at a variety of different planting types. And one of my favorite places in the project is this picnic grove, which is divided by a wide promenade and an alley of trees. And here is a space that provides a number of picnic tables and umbrellas, but also grill areas, actual places where you can go to the farmer's market, for example, or bring your own cooler of food and just, make a night out of it, as well as shaded pathways and benches for seating. But this, we imagine, would be just a really bustling place at any time of day or night. We're even exploring with lighting, doing some sort of dangled ceiling lightings at night just to make it a really special place at all hours of the day. And then, as I mentioned, the house, we're working with the historic architect to restore the porches so that they truly do wrap around 3 of the 4 sides of the house. And we're exploring with the city group ways to really bring the interior of the house to life for all kinds of different programs for the community. And I did want to mention the importance of honoring history in a way that's reflective and engaging, and maybe a little subtle so that it's found and you can choose to engage with it, or you can choose to walk by. But we're working with our signage designers and some community groups and local historians on doing what we're thinking of a history walk. And this is basically placing markers in the ground throughout the project that would tell stories and share details about people whose lives were shaped by Dix Park and even physically the site itself. So, for example, the picture on the upper right is of Mildred Simon and her sister. They actually grew up in the House of Many Porches. But there's many, many stories of all kinds that we could honor here through this way. And lastly, but not least, we are very excited to have the opportunity to incorporate public art through the 1% for Public Art Fund, which allocates 1% of the construction budget to incorporating public art in the project. And we're currently wrapping up the request for proposals or qualifications for that. And some of the ideas include very artistic or historic type arbors for providing shade and for plants to grow on, activating that stair so that it's maybe a surprise as you end up in the plaza and look back, you see something on the rise of the steps. Something called projection mapping, where digital projections are cast on trees or buildings or pavement areas and really become an iconic space for people. And then something like a family of sculptures that could actually be hidden, almost like a sculpture, or like a treasure hunt or something like that throughout the project. Some of them which you find, some of them maybe you don't find, or you can tell your friends to look for. But ultimately, this is the design. This is our park for Raleigh. We, again, are so excited to be the design team for this project. It's been an honor working with everybody. And with that, I would absolutely love to hear from anyone if you have questions or comments or concerns.
Great. Thank you so much, Hillary and Grayson.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or comments? It was such an informative presentation and detailed that no follow-up questions. Okay, Beverly has one. Go ahead.
Okay.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the retention of existing trees? You mentioned at the outset that there are some very mature trees and probably some that are ending their life, but also a real desire to keep those as the City of Oaks, and we have a problem with that. I was expecting Marcia to ask this question and she didn't.
Such a great question, Beverly. It's one we are literally working on. We were working on today, how to maximize the existing trees that we're preserving in place. I would say that we have done a really good job at understanding and working with the urban forestry group, figuring out ways to do things now to preserve the health of the trees, but also ways that we can do minimal disturbance in the root zones of these trees so that they can become a long-standing part of the project without deterring their health over the long term. I wish I had a plan showing the trees that we're keeping versus the ones we're not, but I would say if the tree is over 30 to 40 inch caliper, it's staying. And I will point out that there is a number of really large trees along Lake Wheeler Road. There's a lot here, all along here, and then a significant amount here. We've been working really hard and just presented to Grayson and her team a new scheme for the Groveview lawn that adds about 10 new trees that we were actually removing in our first scheme, putting them back in the project and figuring out ways to grade around those so we can keep them intact. But it's so important, and it's also a blessing to have this amazing landscape to work with.
Marcia, go ahead.
I was so impressed with your idea about how to tell the history by markers placed in the ground, telling stories or giving facts. I just think that's a very clever and not intrusive way to educate and to honor what was there. I'm impressed by that that solution. Just wanted to say that.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Marcia.
One thing I'll add is there's a couple existing buildings right next to the playground that there's been a lot of conversation about how they might be incorporated into the design, if at all. And, you know, there's of course a lease agreement with the state that they can occupy these buildings until 2025, I believe is the date, which is not too far away really. And so, you know, there's been talk of the building, that you can see there that looks kind of like a capital I, that might be incorporated in some way as a park administrative sort of building, and maybe could have community rooms in it. And I think that's a really exciting and neat idea to complement the playground and keep that building, which has a lot of historical significance. Yeah.
Right. Jennifer, that's a really great point. I wonder if Grayson or Kate wants to jump in on this, but in our meetings with the leadership committee, we heard that need for like a park support building or a park house near the Plaza Play. And the Brown building, the I-shaped building, is so uniquely poised to be just that. It sort of sits up and looks over the project site. It has good bones inside the building. There are some rooms that could be opened up for large gatherings or meetings or assemblies. And so I think our team is really excited about looking at incorporating that into the project at a future phase when it does become available to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jen, you're right that 2025 is not that far off, especially when you start to look at, we still have over a year left in the design process, and we're anticipating about 2 years for construction. So access to the Brown building and the surrounding buildings when the DHHS lease ends is not very far off from the anticipated opening. One thing that I love about the Brown building is that if you walk in front of the Brown building on the eastern side, you can see that was the original front entrance to the building. And so it's situated to look over this area that once was the patient recreation area that is now going to be our Plaza Play. And there's a bit of topography difference there that makes it really unique. So we're excited for the future of when the Brown building does become more integrated with the Plaza Play, and also know that one of the things that we need to do for all the buildings in the park is determine what those uses will be, which will be no small undertaking, but we think that the potential for the Brown building to complement and support the Plaza Play is a really good one.
Great, thank you for that. I saw Christina and then Brad, your hands up.
Thank you so much. This is an amazing presentation. Thank you so much for bringing it. You did say at the beginning, and pardon me for not knowing, that the grove had historical significance. And I was just wondering if you could point me to where I could learn about that, because I'm not educated on that. So I would love to learn about it.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
can take that one.
Sure, go for it.
A couple of things. In our master plan, the Dix Park master plan, it does talk about the history of the site. We are also in the process, our Dix Park team as a whole, of creating on our Dix Park website kind of a landing page of the different, there's various historic documents tracking the history of the site. So that hopefully is coming soon. We have some new signage that's coming out. But I do think a good place to start would be the master plan, and also the eastern edge or plan view right side of this sheet is part of a National Historic Overlay that also talks about how this open space is part of the history of the hospital site.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I will add that there's this incredible black and white photo of an Easter egg hunt in the Grove when there was a lot of the understory still intact. It's all patients and people who worked at the hospital, all grown-ups playing and having this tradition of the Easter egg hunt in the Grove. So look for that in the master plan.
Yeah, I was just going to note really briefly that I also
Brad.
thought the notion. Can you hear me? Hi.
Yeah, hey, I remember you.
Yeah, good to see you.
You
I also just like the notion of having these sort of inset things to tell a history, either via an app or whatever else. But we sort of had a different treatment than that at Moore Square. And Dix as a catalyst for sort of standards across the system is really something that this board in particular has been interested in. And so it would be nice if whatever that standard was that was developed, either in some way reference some of the ones that have been done before. I mean, Moore Square is kind of a one-off, but like every entry into Moore Square on the ground, there's a story about that entrance and what the park was and how it was used. And it would just be interesting if they're almost alongside the development of that piece could be essentially a parks standard for that, so that all the parks, all of them have such interesting stories, could potentially do that as well, particularly if it's an app or something like that. But the ability to make that a standard that could be used throughout. Obviously, Dix might have its own sort of corner of marketing and whatnot, but I mean, there's great stories at Method Road that like people don't necessarily realize, and if they are used to their experience at Dix, they can pull out their app and be like, oh, this was a WPA thing that was here for that. So that's just one element of just however many places we can sort of, either as an appendix or something else, just sort of be like, we're piloting this, we hope to sort of implement it over time to the whole system. That would be really great.
That's a really cool idea. I had no idea about that, Grayson, from Moore Square. I'll have to take a look at that.
I'll be happy to share that with you.
What a great idea.
Any other comments or questions from the Beverly? Was that a question or were you pointing at something? Okay.
Dave.
Okay.
Oh, Dave.
Is there a landscape operations maintenance manual that's going to come with this to make sure it grows in as envisioned?
Good question. Maintenance is so important. I didn't even talk about it. We technically are not, correct me if I'm wrong, Grayson, we're not preparing an O&M plan after the park is built, but we're working on one now. So we're working very, very closely with the O&M team in the city on how this will be cared for from day one and long term, and all of the thinking of how they operate today and how they anticipate operating for Plaza Place specifically based on the staff they're allocating, and how this will be used is all informing, again, it's like a closed loop system. It's informing the design. So like if you're thinking specifically of like organic maintenance and plant kind of library plan, that to that level, I don't think we're providing, but it could be something that we end up working on because those things are invaluable to the success of the project.
Yeah, so I guess that would be my question to the staff is, what are we going to do to ensure that this vision survives, knowing that this is going to take decades to grow out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's where the work that we are doing with the O&M plan, we're using kind of I'm trying to get to the point without getting in the details too much, but we're using existing park positions and the amount of hours that they have to dedicate to what's anticipated for the maintenance of the site. This relates to taking care of the plants and landscaping, but also operations from event planning and activation of the site. And we are also parallel with that, parks maintenance staff is looking at those anticipated needs and putting in requests. And I believe it's through the upcoming park bond on what our needs will be to staff this site from day one. And really from before it even opens, looking at the staff leading up to that from both activation and maintenance.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate all the finesse that's in the landscape shown in all these images, and hope we do everything we can to ensure that doesn't get lost as the people who were involved in the process now retire and move on and don't understand all the delicacies of this landscape.
Certainly.
Such a great point. Thanks, Steve.
For that. One last question I have is wondering if you and Hillary, maybe you're not the right person to have to give this information, but if someone from staff maybe could give just a quick kind of overview of the Lake Wheeler Road situation and how that affects the park and what the latest is, and essentially kind of what we learned in the last leadership meeting would be helpful.
I think Hillary probably has some good explanation on this, but I will jump in. Hillary, if you can kind of point out for me the green buffer, if you will, along Lake Wheeler Road. There's some very preliminary planning happening with the EDGE study is looking at streetscape options, and a draft of those options should be published or out for review from the public, I think in the next month or two. So Hillary just drew us a blue line, and so from what we know with transportation planning and the EDGE study is anticipating where that right-of-way line may be in the future of the park. And you can see from where she's drawing that the residential area across the street does not have a whole lot of yard to dedicate to future right-of-way. So instead of doing a right-of-way dedication from the center line and taking it out evenly from the both sides of the road, we're looking at that right-of-way dedication coming out of the park side. So there's a bit of a green buffer where there's not much planned anticipation of that right-of-way expansion. And then also along with that is the existing transmission lines that run along the edge of the road. So we've had a few meetings with Duke Energy on what that future condition may be, but we do know that the placement of the transmission lines will be driven by the right-of-way expansion and the future road. So that's kind of where we are. There's not currently funding for Lake Wheeler Road improvements, but there is a push for that to happen. And there's been conversation of that occurring with the upcoming park bond.
Grayson, how much right of way do you anticipate will be dedicated on the park side?
So the width that we have been given is 80 feet. I was going to say 79, so it's roughly 80. Hillary, do you know from the existing right of way how much that would mean comes from the park? Like, I know the number of 79 to 80 for the future right of way, but I'm not sure what the existing right of way would be to calculate what that is out of the park.
I think it's a 25 foot road today, but what ultimately that means taking up in the park property is going to depend on the right-of-way section design. You know, whether it's a 2-lane with a divided median and then added planting with multi-use path on both sides or one side, and then maybe parking or bus stop. It really, I think, will depend on that cross-section design. But I would say, long story short, the majority will be absorbed in the park side.
Mm-hmm. Do you anticipate that those mature trees will be able to be saved that you were talking about earlier that are along the road?
I understand that the design of the right-of-way is being looked at in detail by the edge study, the Dix Park edge study. And in our coordination with them and through Grayson's team, they are working on customizing the right-of-way design to preserve those trees as much as possible. So the answer is yes, but the caveat is what happens with the transmission lines. That is the big, huge, anxiety-provoking question mark, because if that has to just move offset where it is right now into the park, then there's some really painful decisions that will have to be made at that point. If it can be absorbed in the right-of-way, which would be ideal in some form, then I do believe that those trees can remain in place.
Thank you. Dave and then Beverly. Yep.
Oh, sorry. This might be a question for the edge study, but are we assuming that all those residential lots are remaining as they are, and that's why we're taking it out of the park? And then why would we be making that assumption and not assuming that this is going to get redeveloped and then require that developer to dedicate half the right of way?
That was my question too.
I think that is a very good question for the edge study. I will also note that what the work that the edge study is doing right now is conceptual streetscape design. So it's not the actual engineering design of what the street will become. I feel like I also anticipate that the road widening or the street improvements may be ahead of the redevelopment of the residential area. And really what we are planning for in the design is the, I don't want to say worst, the biggest impact that we could have on the park side. And so that's why we're looking at that right of way coming out of the park side. And it's a anticipation of what that design may be. It's not a the actual case of what it will be. We won't know that until the actual the design of the road begins by transportation, city transportation.
Thanks.
I really don't think that those, I wish I could think that those single family homes were going to stay there, but that's not being realistic. And then the park is paying for the developers to have no consequence. And I'm very concerned about that.
I would hope that some sort of urban edge would be sort of assessed there if that did come to pass in that way. That some sort of like deeper urban edge would still be there, and then that almost contributes to the park in a certain way. Maybe that's something that Grayson can sort of tag into the edge study. There's a benefit for the road to be absorbed by the park if the acknowledgement is made that maybe there's some additional sort of urban edge there, because if you have a mixed use building there with restaurants on the first floor, you would hope that they would have outdoor seating and other sort of urban amenities that potentially could sit in a right of way, and even transit infrastructure and the like on that side that might come with that sort of development. But I don't think making sure that there's enough room for the right of way in the park is bad and necessarily means that we wouldn't get 40 feet from whatever future development was, even if that looked a little different than a normal right of way. It wasn't necessarily a road per se, because if it's an urban edge and you have hundreds of potentially apartments there, then there's a whole different need on that side.
I also want to add that that this right-of-way expansion that we're planning for with the design is just for the frontage of Plaza and Play. This is not necessarily for the entire park frontage along Lake Wheeler Road. So there's a lot to be determined.
Very good. If there's no other questions, then I thank you both for all the information. That was great.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Hillary. All right, well, next on the agenda, I believe it's approval of minutes. Let me pull that back up. Yes. Did you guys have a chance to review the minutes from March? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I make a motion they be accepted.
I'll second. Lindsay Saunders.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any against? Okay, the minutes are approved. Moving on, director's report, Oscar.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer, and good evening, everyone. Good to see everyone. So we've had quite a busy last month with various items, various projects, and I'm very happy that you all had a chance to get an update on a lot of the progress being made out at Dix Park. So great presentation, Grayson and Hillary. On April 6th, Council, primarily Councilmember Branch, appointed or nominated a replacement on the board for Dexter, and he nominated and council approved Mr. Gregory Etheridge to that seat. And so I don't believe he was able to join us today, but he will most likely be joining us at the next meeting. So once again, we do thank Dexter for his service to the park board, and we look forward to welcoming Mr. Etheridge to the board. A couple of other things that I'd like to also touch base on I like to say for all the nature nerds out there, we are going to be hosting a BioBlitz event. The Wake Nature Preserve Partnership has chosen to conduct this year's BioBlitz event at Horseshoe Farm Nature Preserve, and that will be held Friday, May the 14th of this year. So we'll be saying some recruitment announcements. So for all y'all who have your smartphone, your iNaturalist app, and a knack for identifying plants and animals, this is going to be the perfect opportunity for y'all to join in. And I think this is also part of the city nature challenge that we have with other metropolitan areas across the country. So we're very excited to be hosting the Wake County BioBlitz this year. Also, I want to kind of give you all an update on the Racial Equity Training and Action Plan. So City of Raleigh staff have already begun to sign up and take the virtual equity training that's being conducted by the city. And then after staff have completed, then the training will go ahead and start rolling out to all the city boards and commissions. So that will be coming soon. it is in motion. And as for I have already taken the training, and it's very eye-opening, and it's a very a great training. I took it through REI groundwater, which I believe a lot of people have also taken it through REI groundwater, but there are some additional opportunities, I believe, where there may be some other, our own racial equity team headed up by Dr. Caesar will also be doing some training as well for in-house staff. So more news to come as the boards and commissions start getting some training opportunities in the future. We have been slowly but surely opening back up through allowances from Governor Cooper on COVID. So as of April 3rd, mass gathering limits have increased, which means that we can go ahead and increase our indoor rental capacity up to 50 people and our outdoor rental capacity up to 100. So that opens up a lot more opportunities now for events, programs, and the like for our community. In addition, we've also been able to increase some capacity in our indoor programs and events. And so staff is slowly but surely rolling those out as we move forward. One good example is we have been allowed for our outdoor pools that we can go ahead and return to 100% capacity this summer. So I think staff did a great job last year with all the safety protocols and everything they did. So, you know, things are looking up, things are moving forward. And so if you do have any specific questions or need more details on our COVID openings, we do have details on our website. And if you like, I can be more than happy to kind of send you that link to the website that details all those COVID opening protocols. And a couple more things. On April 4th, we held our summer camp registration by utilizing our new rec track system. So, you know, a lot of fingers were crossed. We had a lot of anticipation that the new recreation system was going to be able to handle the volume of people registering their children for summer camps. And I'm happy to say that it went very smoothly. The system was able to handle the volume, and the public was very responsive to our summer camp program offerings. So we did reach 60% capacity by the end of the first week of registration. And as of April 12th, 7,610 camp slots were filled out of the total 12,537 that we had available. So people are feeling very confident. People were remembering how well we did last year with summer camp safety protocols. And so that's really a testament to what staff did last year, and community really wanting to get back to some sense of normalcy. So as usual, our most popular summer camp locations are Optimist, Lakeland, Laurel Hills, and Millbrook Exchange. And as staff likes to point out, some of those locations reached 100% capacity for the entire summer within 6 minutes that registration was open. So overwhelming response to that. So we're very happy. And also on the director's report, you will see that there's some stats that you can kind of look at your own leisure. And then lastly, I also wanted to kind of highlight some of the great work that our staff has been doing. I think Ken's been kind of leading the way in partnership with Wake County. But I know Christina had brought it up one of the previous times about possibly having some COVID vaccination sites at some of our locations, you know, to be a little bit more geographically equitable. And so Ken started working with Wake County in addition to some other staff. And so we're partnering to begin vaccination distribution at Green Road Park, April 16th and 17th. And in addition, they're going to be planning 4 more days each week, May 3rd and 24th at Green Road. And they're currently working with a third party right now to host a vaccine clinic at Roberts Park later this month. So we're in tune with Wake County. We're still doing some COVID testing at various sites. And now we're starting to slowly but surely move into vaccinations at some of our sites, which we're very happy to be a part of. So with that, that's the end of my report, and I'll be more than happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Oscar.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Next, we have Parks Committee. So this is a good time to say, with Chris Dillon rolling off of the Parks Board, we need somebody to be the chair of the Parks Committee. This committee has not met in a few months. Their agenda had been, they basically got through everything that had been on their work plan for the year, sort of early. So we're hoping that with the next work plan, they'll have some more things to review. One of the typical things would be fees and emissions, when those are reviewed and updated. And as you may remember, traffic going by my window. As you may remember, we postponed that due to COVID. So we didn't update the fees and emissions this year. So I anticipate that that may happen next year. So that would be something that would be on the agenda, as well as, I believe, Oscar, you were saying there might be impact fees for developers that will be reviewed next year as well, which I think sounds great. So keep it in mind. I don't need anyone to jump up right now, but if you want to email myself and Giovanna after, if you're interested in chairing the Parks Committee, that would be much appreciated. Let's see. Next is Fred Fletcher, Volunteer Committee. Charlie?
Thank you to everyone who signed up to interview the award recipients. Be sure to turn in your cards back to Mary if you haven't already done so. So all of the board members who signed up to interview the award winners, we ask that you write a personalized thank you card, and just be sure to turn those back into Mary Owens if you haven't already done so. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the reminder. Greenways Committee, Beverly.
We had a pretty short meeting this Monday. We went over the staff report on Greenway safety initiatives, and folks have gotten that in hand now to give feedback before the next meeting. We also today had the Greenway Master Plan Steering Committee meeting, and looked at draft recommendations in that meeting, and that will be coming to the Parks Board I guess the June meeting at the same, right before, or maybe the end of May, when the the next level of public input happens, June and July, to respond to those draft recommendations. So with the Greenway Committee, you'll be getting reports on that the next couple of meetings, and it's very much in the final stages. So that's exciting.
Great, thank you for that. Sustainability, Wildlife and Urban Trees Committee, Marcia.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there was, I think, just Christina and myself were the only committee people that attended the last meeting. And we talked, the focus of that meeting was biophilic cities and the process that's necessary for the city of Raleigh to go through to qualify for that designation, should we decide we want to. Now, this is on our work plan, and it was moved. We're supposed to be working in conjunction with the sustainability and environmental sustainability committee. And for some folks that don't know what the word biophilic means, it means a nature-rich city. And some of us would really like to see Raleigh be that for future generations. We've got a good foundation for that, but without care, it won't be here. All of us are aware of that. So thinking ahead and what can we do now? So if North Carolina does not yet have any cities that have qualified for being a biophilic city, so it would be quite a little point of pride if Raleigh could be that first city. Some of the biophilic cities are Austin, Texas, Norfolk, Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, St. Louis, Toronto, San Francisco, Singapore. That's an intensely populated place, and it's a biophilic city. It's green. Barcelona, Spain, Edinburgh, Scotland. Anyway, so it is something that it is possible for Raleigh to achieve. And Scott has been talking with people in other departments, because this, of course, is across the department. It's a citywide thing. And there are certain metrics that the city chooses to take on and maintain those metrics. One of them is Oscar has a plan to have pollinator gardens in our parks, and that would be something that would qualify. So anyway, nature-rich cities are really healthy for all of its citizens and allow for urban wildlife to have what it's necessary to maintain part of the interest. So anyway, this is going on. This is what we talked about. Some of us think it's really exciting, and I figured there might be some folks that have come to the board since we last talked about it at board meeting, and I wanted to let you know about it. So we meet Monday again, and one of the things we're going to be talking about is trees and the program for maintaining our forest. We're doing a managed burn, right, Scott? So if this interests you, join us.
Thank you, Marcia. I think that sounds really interesting. So Scott, I believe you're kind of heading up the charge for the biophilic cities to head up that process. What's next?
Our next steps will be to look at what existing work the city's already doing in the area of biophilia, what performance measures are our partner departments like stormwater and sustainability already capturing, and see if we can combine those into what would apply for the biophilic cities network. Then it becomes a process of drafting a resolution and creating the program narrative, and then advancing that forward. We met with, this is part of our conversation on Monday, but we met with sustainability staff and stormwater staff. We believe the Environmental Advisory Board will be a letter of support, as will a Stormwater Management Advisory Committee. We would then kind of take that forward to council and seek permission to submit the application for the city as a biophilic city.
Great. Okay. And I assume Parks Board, we would also, if we all agree, do a letter of support as well. Yeah.
It would come through the Sustainability Committee to the board as a whole. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Thank you. Next is Devro Meadow Park. I believe you guys met. Any update from Brad, Christina, or Charlie?
There's a public meeting coming up in early May, and I believe that information has been sent about. But we got some good updates on their thinking on it so far. They're obviously completely master planning, but there was coalescing, at least amongst the group, around either a light sort of touch that was very sort of geometric and sort of referenced the old ballpark, or the highest preference approach was a very sort of return to like a curvy stream and whatnot that would also require a lot more stuff to be uncovered in the space. And so they took our feedback on that, and I think they're going to update sort of their approach for the early May meeting, and then they will come back to us again. But I think all that information is already online. But really interesting. Just it's fun to see that site, like not with all the crap on it, as a green space in their plotting. So did I miss anything?
That's okay. When did you say the public meeting is? May?
I think it's like May 4th or 5th.
I think it's May 7th.
May 6th.
7th, 6th.
It's
May.
May 6th. It's
One of those days. Okay.
May,
May 6th at 7.
Oh, okay. Great. Great.
And Charlie had lots of concerns about the nature of stormwater runoff and the realities of water.
Surprise, surprise.
Reality. Yep. Great. Thanks, you guys. Arts Commission, Carol, do you have a report?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Oh, and Marsha, I was there.
You was.
Anyway, I'm going to go backwards from the notes that I took from the Arts Commission meeting. And this meeting was 3 weeks ago because the Arts Commission has changed its meeting date. And this was March 23rd, a Tuesday. Goodness, I need some light. It's gotten dark on us. I have an audio visual studio in here for my choir, and I'll just have to use natural light. Okay, so in response to Hillary Archer's presentation on Dix Park, the commission near the end of the meeting mentioned that goodness gracious. Okay, gosh, is this the right one? The Art in the Park, Art in the Plaza and Play, which is exactly what we were talking about tonight, is now under, design, which is sort of redundant now that we've seen the presentation. But what I liked about Hillary's presentation was that, well, possibly because of the fact this meeting was relatively long ago, there were no schematics or any visuals to support the report. So it was very interesting to me to see that Hillary had the quadrants on there with the different kinds of art that might be used for the Art in the Plaza and Play. And then backing up a little more, a great deal of the conversation was given over to the arts grants that the city makes. My friend Patty Williams gave that report. Basically, I learned that COVID just really wiped out a lot of arts opportunities, but they kept it going. They do have grants. They do want more support for grants in the future from the city. And the audiences actually increased. They had a theme called Out of the Ashes Rise Diamonds. And the thing that made me sad was that I wasn't aware specifically, I was vaguely aware that Clodagh was the head of the international program, but I went to the very first international festival in, I think it was 86 or 87. And I thought it was great that she at this time was head of it. Well, the whole thing was canceled last year, as you remember. I remember pretty vividly. And I don't know what the status of it is this year, but I will inquire and report back. So most of the meeting was given over to discussion of the grants, who was getting the grants, what they represented, what the medium or media were, and where these people were from, and the fact that some of them are going to be, some of them have work that will be displayed in the municipal building outside the council office. And that is all I have for the Arts Commission report. The only thing I want to add is that it's really an amazing perspective to listen to the Arts Commission have its meetings. It's just so different and so mind-opening. And they really work hard and they accomplish things that a lot of us probably don't even know are going on, you know, with children and elders and everything else. Okay, that's it.
Thanks, Carol. Next we have BPAC, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Board, Christina.
Hey, we actually meet on Monday because of the 5 weeks. It kind of threw us off. So I don't have a report this month, but I will next month. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, you didn't talk long enough. I'm still coughing. Let's see. Do we have a report from Raleigh Historic Cemeteries?
No, not tonight.
Okay. Then let's see. Dick's Leadership Committee. We met, I believe it was, when was it? I just had it up. March 23rd, I want to say. And you pretty much just heard everything that we talked about for the most part. And I did sign up and went on the tour with Grayson on March 27th that weekend. She had been doing a few of them. And I don't know if she's doing any more, but it was fun to walk the site where the playground will go with Grayson and have her kind of talk about everything and understand it a little bit better and, you know, be able to kind of understand the scale of the space in more detail. So I encourage you to look at the Dick's website for any future walking tours. Those are fun to do. Next is the Historical Resources and Museum Advisory Board. So that was, that's the wrong date. Okay, well, that was March 3rd, I want to say. But at any rate, the here's some highlights. I think it was actually the 20th maybe. Giovanna, do you need me to get you that exact date? I thought I had it on here. Hold on 1 second. It was the 24th, March 24th. Okay. Yeah. So the Mordecai Heirloom plant sale is going to happen April 23rd and 24th. That's a big deal to a lot of people. So just wanted to point that out. It's a good way to get some affordable heirloom plants and herbs. The interactive water feature at Moore Square was supposed to open April 9th. So I'm seeing that it did, yay. The Moore Square Farmers Market will resume on Sundays. Fridays at 12:15, Raleigh History Month lecture series will be happening. Pool and Carousel reopened in March for the first time since the pandemic had started. They're still struggling with staffing levels being low, despite trying to increase hiring efforts. So if you know of anyone who would like to work, I think particularly at Pool and Park, they're looking for folks. The Carousel Centennial event started March 28th and is going through the end of April. Celebration is including daily programming and videos. And Marcia might have something she might want to add to that. Do you have more detail about the Carousel Centennial event and some of the
No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
They would they have added a new feature, a new bench ride and chariot, they're called. And that kind of took me off by surprise when I was over soon after it opened, but it's beautiful and it matches the Denzel intricacy of the carving. And apparently it's for accessibility. So anyway,
Great,
there was, I saw on the website that they were looking for adding another creature, and that really upset me because you just can't add more creatures to a carousel. You know, it also has to be balanced in the right, and there is no Denzel company making them anymore. So how do you have a historic property and you get the appropriate creature that matches what the company made? Oh, I talked to the girl. I went over and had a wonderful conversation with Alora, and so they're considering having something made as a replica that would be put up instead of using an orange cone when an animal needs to be cared for,
Repainted or
re-glued and
maintained.
repainted,
Yeah.
because they're fragile. They're really old, and they're, the Denzel Carousel Company has been out of business a long time. So it's not a lot of people that are carousel artisans and craftspeople.
Yeah.
Tell your grandchildren it might be a good job to go into, be self-employed.
Right. Thank you. The walking tours are resuming at the City Raleigh Museum. There's a new walking tour starting at the Pope House called Rediscovering Dr. Pope's Neighborhood every Sunday at 2. And the Village Library, formerly Cameron Village Library, reached out to the Historic Resources Museum program staff to liaise on an exhibit they're creating about the Cameron Plantation and the Latta House. So that's yeah. Friends of the City Raleigh Museum are asking for donations to supplement the museum revenue lost during the pandemic. They really struggled in the past year. That's my update from the Historic Resources Museum Advisory Board meeting. Next is chair report. We had the day of service back in a few weeks ago, and that was great. There was a turnout of about 8 of us, plus a bicycle pedestrian advisory committee board member, committee board came, and we had a good time, and we cleaned up a lot of trash. And there's a link to some photos there if you want to take a look, and hopefully next time the rest of you will join too, because it was fun and it was good camaraderie. And we're thinking maybe in the fall of doing a tree planting along the Greenway. So that would be another fun one. So thanks to everybody who came out for that. And then there's also, you'll see there's an attachment of a work plan submittal form. So if you take a look at that, it's that time of the year where we ask you to give any thoughts that you have to things that should be on our work plan for next year. We have items that are always on the plan that we always sort of review, whatever's in the hopper for master plans and various things, but then there's also an opportunity to add items that you think are of interest or that we should learn more about or should delve into more. So if you can look at that form, fill it out and send it back to Giovanna. Anything I missed on that, folks? Okay. Oh, and I also wanted to point out, I won't be at next May's meeting. I won't be able to attend, so Beverly will lead that meeting. I'll be out of town. Roundtable, any other comments from board members? Anyone have anything to add or share?
I'd like to share. I went to the memory lane tours over at Chavis on Monday. It went quite well. I was impressed with the exhibit. There was a good crowd of people there, and there were photographers. So appreciate all the hard work that the staff put in doing that. I remember Adrian Starks talking to me about the idea, and then it grew and grew and grew. So I was very pleased with that. Also, we had our last meeting for the advisory group on the interpretive exhibit at Chavis. It was extremely positive. It was very thorough. And I'm impressed that the consultants took all of the advice that was given by committee members. So again, thanks to the staff and to the consultants for a job well done. Now I can hardly wait to see the exhibit completed and everybody get an opportunity to see it. I think it's going to have quite the wow factor. So I appreciate all the effort that went into that. And I'm happy to be well enough to be on with you this week, because the last time you met, I was not feeling well at all.
Glad you're feeling better. Thanks for the updates. Yeah. Christina, yeah.
So I was just thinking about it, and after our cleanup, which I had an amazing time at, I got to hang out with everybody and learn a little bit. And then Lindsay and I went on a walk which was phenomenal. I had a great time. We both went to Strickland Road Park and didn't even know they had a little walkway, and it was phenomenal. And I'm wondering if there's a way, and I don't know how to organize this, that we had something like ongoing just for us, since I have not met 95% of you. I would love to walk a trail or walk somewhere and learn more about the Greenway. I know Beverly, there's so much to learn from you. So I would love to do that if people are interested, if we can have like a standing, like, oh, let's meet. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. Throwing that to everybody to see your thoughts.
I think that's a fun idea. I'm not sure how we would arrange it, but I like the idea. I could send out a dude. I could send out yeah, I could send out a doodle poll or something and just say, anyone who's interested, you know, sign up for a time and go for a walk.
Maybe. I would just like
or
to
bike ride.
Yeah, or bike ride. I would just like to meet everybody before August. So that's all.
Right. That's a good point. Anything else? Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thanks all. Have a great evening. Great to see you.
Have a great evening.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good evening,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Good night. Good to see you all.